Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world where the next war isn't declared by politicians, but by machines, where the battlefield isn't land, sea, or air. It's data. The generals. I'm Tucker Carlson, and tonight I want to talk about something that's no longer science fiction. It's happening right now. Artificial intelligence has become the most dangerous weapon ever built, and the race to control it may be pushing the US, China, and India toward the edge of a global conflict. They told you artificial intelligence would make life easier. It would do your work, your thinking, maybe even your driving. What they didn't tell you is that it would also decide who rules the world. Right now, the US, China, and India aren't just competing for markets or money. They're competing for control over intelligence itself. Not human intelligence, but machine intelligence, the kind that doesn't sleep, doesn't question orders, and never forgets. Whoever dominates AI will dominate economies, militaries, and minds. It's not about who builds the most weapons anymore. It's about who builds the smartest ones. America built the internet. It created Silicon Valley. It pioneered the idea of global connectivity. But here's the irony. That same technology, the one we thought would spread freedom, might now be the thing that destroys it. The US believes that if it just keeps innovating, it can stay ahead. But that belief, that blind faith could be fatal, because innovation without control is chaos. And chaos, when fueled by artificial intelligence, becomes unstoppable. Meanwhile, China isn't hoping to win this race. It's planning to. Its AI isn't just about creating better gadgets or faster apps. It's about power, the kind of power that doesn't need tanks or guns. In Beijing's model, AI watches everyone, tracks everything, and predicts behavior before it happens. Imagine that. A government that doesn't just react to citizens, but it controls them in real time. They're exporting that model across the world quietly, efficiently, and without a single vote. Now think about India, the country with more engineers than the US, China combined, the country that built its economy on brains, not bombs. India is playing a different game. While the US and China fight for dominance, India is learning, observing, building. It's becoming the world's digital workshop, training algorithms, running data centers, and shaping global code. It doesn't need to start a war to win this one. It just needs to be indispensable. But here's the part no one talks about. AI isn't loyal to anyone. Not to governments, not to corporations, not to flags. It's loyal only to whoever feeds it the most data. And right now, all three nations are feeding the beast, pouring in information, identities, secrets, and systems as if nothing could ever go wrong. But something will. It always does. So ask yourself, when machines start to think faster than nations can act, who's really in charge? Washington, Beijing, New Delhi, or the algorithms themselves? The truth is uncomfortable. For the first time in human history, power might no longer belong to the strongest or the richest, but to the most connected. And that's why this matters, because the AI race isn't just a competition between countries. It's a fight for the future of civilization. And right now, no one knows who's winning. Let's talk about what's really happening beneath the surface, because it's not just a tech race, it's an ideological one. The US says it wants to use AI to promote democracy, freedom, and transparency. Sounds noble, right? But look closer. When Silicon Valley builds algorithms that silence one side of the political debate while boosting another, is that freedom? When big tech decides what information you see, what you can say, and what you should believe, is that transparency? That's not democracy. That's digital control disguised as moral progress. And this isn't an accident. The elites who run these companies believe they're smarter than you, that they should be the ones deciding what's true. So they program that belief into the machines. They call it safety, fact checking, or content moderation. But what it really means is we don't trust people to think for themselves. This is how control works in the 21st century, not with soldiers or police, but with lines of code. It's subtle, invisible, but absolutely effective. Now, across the ocean, China isn't pretending they've dropped the mask. Beijing doesn't talk about freedom or transparency. They talk about stability and security. And their AI systems are built exactly for that, for surveillance, for censorship, for control. They use facial recognition to identify protesters, predictive analytics to stop dissent before it starts, massive social credit systems to punish thought crimes in real time. It's a digital dictatorship, and it works frighteningly well. The difference between the US and China isn't that one is free and the other isn't. The difference is that China admits it's building a control grid. America just calls it innovation. In both systems, AI is the gatekeeper. It decides who gets heard, who gets erased, who rises, who falls. And it's doing it faster than any human authority can keep up. Here's where India enters this story again, the so-called neutral power. India says it stands for open access, for equal opportunity, for balance between freedom and order. But don't forget, the same tools used to empower citizens can just as easily be turned to watch them. India's digital ID system, Aadhaar, connects over 1 billion people to a centralized database. It's efficient, yes, but it's also a surveillance dream, a single lever that could, in the wrong hands, control an entire population with the push of a button. So when we look at the US, China, India triangle, what we're really seeing is 3 different versions of the same future. America's version hides control behind corporate slogans. China's version enforces it through the state. India's version builds the infrastructure that makes both possible. No matter which wins, ordinary people lose a little more freedom every day. Here's the frightening truth. AI isn't just reshaping power. It's rewriting morality. It's teaching societies what to value, what to fear, and who to obey. If no one stops to ask who programmed those values or why, then we might wake up one day and realize the machines aren't just serving us anymore. They're defining us. Follow the money. Because where every story about power really begins, the AI race isn't just about intelligence or innovation. It's about control of global wealth. The nation that dominates artificial intelligence will dominate the next century. Forget oil. Forget nuclear weapons. Data is the new currency. Algorithms are the engines that turn it into profit and power. And who's fighting for that control? 3 giants, the US, China, and India, each trying to shape the world in its own image. In Washington, the conversation is no longer about innovation. It's about dominance. The White House calls it tech leadership. But what it really means is economic survival. American companies like Google, Microsoft, and NVIDIA are pouring billions into AI because they know whoever owns the best chips owns the future. But here's the catch. The chips are made in Taiwan. The data is mined from users across the planet, and the code is trained on human behavior itself. So who's really in charge here? The US or the network of unelected tech corporations that no one voted for, but everyone depends on? China sees that weakness. Beijing's leaders don't just want to compete. They want to control the digital bloodstream of the global economy. Their digital Silk Road isn't just a fancy infrastructure project. It's a quiet invasion, an expansion of influence through cables, satellites, AI systems exported across Africa, Asia, and even Europe. Every camera they sell, every server they install feeds back data. Every byte strengthens their position in the global hierarchy. That's not trade. That's colonization through technology. And then there's India, the unexpected disruptor, once dismissed as a consumer market, now emerging as the world's data factory. India's got the population, the engineers, and most importantly, the digital infrastructure to rival anyone. But the question is, will it align with Washington's democracy narrative or Beijing's digital authoritarianism? Because whichever side India chooses, it will tilt the balance of global power. Now, while all of this happens at the top, let's not forget what's happening underneath to people like you. AI is being sold as progress, but what it's really doing is hollowing out the middle class. Automation is replacing jobs faster than new ones can be created. Tech elites get richer while ordinary workers are told to learn to code. Your data becomes their wealth. Your privacy becomes their commodity. And the more connected you are, the more dependent you become. And yet you won't hear that in the mainstream conversation. You'll hear about AI ethics boards, about responsible innovation, nice words. But who sits on those boards? The same people who built the system, the same people who profit from it. That's not oversight. That's theater. This is what happens when economies stop serving people and start serving machines. when governments start asking corporations for permission to act, when national interest gets written in code, and unless we understand that this AI race is not a contest of innovation, but a struggle for sovereignty, we'll lose not just jobs, but the ability to make decisions for ourselves. What happens when machines start deciding who wins and who loses, not just in business, but in politics, media, and even war? That's not science fiction anymore. Artificial intelligence is no longer a tool, it's an arbiter. It decides what you see online, what information is buried, what narratives are promoted. In short, it controls perception. And if you can control perception, you can control reality. That's the terrifying truth nobody in Washington or Silicon Valley wants to say out loud. The US, China, India aren't just